Artificial intelligence is here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Daniel Lopez. This is the AI Education Conversation, where we explore the opportunities, risks, and the impacts of AI across education. Let's jump in. What's up, everyone? I hope you've had a great week. We've spent a lot of time talking about how AI can improve the lives of educators in a conventional classroom sense by doing things like lesson plan generation, being a teaching assistant, other things that are some intended to be some time hacks and really personalize the conventional classroom experience. From my perspective, though, I think it's also really important that we're exploring use cases of AI that don't just make education 10% better, 1% better. I'm looking for things that actually can flip the script entirely and help us to reimagine the educational experience for our young people today from the ground up. In today's episode, I was really excited to talk with the manufacturing millennial himself, Jake Hall. Jake has built a huge following on social media by shedding light on the many cool, innovative automations happening in the manufacturing sector. Really cool things such as machines that use AI and other manufacturing technology to automatically pick up trash in a park, machines that can automatically bake cookies, and other machines that improve so many facets of our everyday life. Jake really reminds us that manufacturing is awesome and that so many opportunities exist in this sector. Before we jump into my conversation with Jake, as always, let's jump into a few updates in AI. Starting first with some updates related to AI and politics. Here in the United States, the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, has moved closer to potentially regulating AI content and political ads. After voting today to open a petition for public comment, the process now could lead to new rules on AI use in campaigns by the end of this year. With the 2024 presidential election nearing, efforts are really focused on creating guidelines before political campaigns further adopt AI. This petition was publicly filed by an organization called Public Citizen, which is a consumer advocacy group that believes there is an urgent need to regulate deepfake AIs and other deceptive AI uses in election ads. This past Thursday, the 6-member FEC actually voted unanimously to consider the group's amended petition, which came after a previously blocked vote. After the petition reaches the Federal Register, there's going to be a 60-day period for public comments. So they're in a process right now to explore what exactly guidelines or potential regulation is going to look like as we consider leveraging AI content and political ads. Now, as a little bit of context for this, in case you're not totally scrubbed into this, I would also really encourage listening to a prior episode I did titled Pope Francis in a Puffer Jacket, which really highlights and explores the deepfake challenge here. At a high level, the challenge that exists is AI is very, very good now at developing images, audio, and video that looks very realistic, right? And so, as you can imagine, there's a lot of implication in a political election where opponents may be generating derogatory ads with fake content using artificial intelligence that a consumer, a voter may view, and that may influence what way they vote for something that never happened. So it can have very big implications on potential elections that are out there. And there's already precedents for some of this happening. In April, the Republican National Committee actually has already aired an AI generated video ad. That ad attacked President Joe Biden. The 30-second ad, what it depicted, and if you have a chance to look, and I'll post this on the chat as well, our Twitter account, the 30-second ad depicted a dystopian future where there's like this Chinese invasion of Taiwan that takes place. There's an economic collapse, and there's a lot of image dedicated to that. And again, none of this actually took place. That's not the only ad that has happened. In June, there was a pro-Ron DeSantis super PAC that released a TV ad attacking former President Trump using an AI-generated version of Trump's voice, right? So again, from my perspective, I'm really concerned with using AI for this use case. I don't think it's a good thing for us to be able to leverage AI, but the challenge is again, how do you regulate it? How do you ensure everybody is playing on fair rules? I think it's a very challenging question that exists, and there's a lot of conversations that still need to happen regarding to what extent we're using AI and to what extent it can be used for very predatory aspects, such as being used in election campaigns to influence voters. Let's turn to some good news, because there's also a lot of good news as well. Cal Fire In partnership with the University of California, San Diego, they've rolled out the Alert California AI program, which uses cameras and AI to spot wildfires. Since its launch in July, the program has already detected at least one wildfire in its early stages. Located in the Cleveland National Forest near San Diego, the fire was controlled within 45 minutes during the early morning. At a high level, the way the program works is it uses AI visual detection to spot abnormalities in feeds of over 1,000 360-degree rotating cameras. It automatically alerts emergency services to check if there's a fire and if action is needed. The public can view a grid of remote live camera views from the program on its website as well. So if you're curious to see what the cameras look like, how the AI is able to do that, you can check that as well. Use cases like this for AI visual detection really excite me. I think we spent a lot of time talking about large language models and the value of having it in the classroom, but as you know, many of the places in the regions across the world are dealing with wildfires. I lived in California for a long time, and wildfires are no joke. I know that we have many listeners in Australia who've experienced this firsthand, some in Canada who've experienced this as well. So having technology like this, which hopefully allows us to navigate the really voracious wildfires that are going to take place with the effects of climate change, really allow us to hopefully get ahead of these things, or get right on these wildfires right as they're starting to happen before they really spread and are consuming acres and acres of land, and then they're really hard to take out. So I'm really excited about that. If you're interested in exploring some other AI visual detection use cases, there was an episode I did a while ago around preventing school shootings. There's a company there that we highlight in the episode that does a lot there with visual detection AI technology as well. We really encourage you to listen to that episode if this is something that you're interested in learning more about. Now, just like with anything else, visual detection, good and bad, right? There can be some challenges there. There can be some use cases around facial recognition that could be problematic. But when we're thinking about the potential of this technology, really some of the good that it can do, I'm really excited that we're finding and identifying really cool ways to use it, such as how CAL FIRE is using it in this case. Let's talk about another way that big companies are using AI guided technology as well. So, Google and American Airlines, they conducted an experiment recently using AI guided altitude adjustments for flights, reducing aircraft contrails by 54%. And something that I did know, which is apparently aircraft contrails contribute to global warming, which is really the reason why they were focused on reducing those contrails. So, first and foremost, what's a contrail? If you didn't know this, this wasn't something I knew either other words prior. When you see those airplanes going into the air, sometimes you'll see that they have that big white streak of just like smoke, or it looks like fuel or whatever it looks like going right behind them. Those contrails, though, those happen because when an engine is producing some soot from just the residue left behind from the engine, if the airplane is going through a patch of the air that has a little bit of humidity, which means there's extra water in that air, that water and the humid air plus the soot creates that contrail. And that contrail, along with other just aspects of aviation, actually contribute 3.5% of global heating emissions, to global warming annually. So there has been a little bit of an emphasis to trying to determine how aviation can reduce its carbon or its global heating footprint here. And they have been able to identify, pilots in particular are able to use these artificial intelligent models to choose different altitudes to be able to reduce these contrails. So in instances where they know they're about to have a contrail or they're experiencing one currently, they're able to use these AI models, allows them to reduce or increase their altitude and to be able to navigate this. So again, another use case that just really excites me. I think we've spent a lot of time talking about use cases here related to generative AI, things such as creating lesson plans, modifying homework assignments, creating essays. But I also want to expand our thinking a little bit. Today's episode is really focused on expanding our thinking about how AI can really help humanity in a very broad sense. And it's not all about generative AI, right? There's a lot of other use cases and things that we could be using artificial intelligence for. And that I think is a perfect segue into this really great conversation I had today with the manufacturing millennial himself, Jake Hall. After my conversation with Jake, I really left with my mind firing on all cylinders about the opportunity that AI brings to change the narrative on what we should be teaching in schools. If AI does actually truly disrupt, to a certain extent it already has, but let's assume that we continue down this trajectory. If AI continues to truly disrupt white collar jobs by automating communication in seconds, right? A lot of these things that folks who are just graduating with the 4-year college degree, they're getting these entry level white collar jobs. And a lot of these generative AI models right now are actually showing that they can take on some of those tasks, right? And so companies are looking at this and we're seeing this disruption. I think what this signals to us in the education sector is, well, if it's disrupting these white collar industries, shouldn't this mean that we now need to expose our young people to new opportunities in the workforce that they're going to be a part of, right? If these jobs potentially are at risk of being extinct by the time they graduate from high school, if they decide to go to college or if they go through a different post-secondary institution, what else exists out there, right? Now, there's obviously a tension that exists there, right? The tension there is that by many accounts, the United States evolved from a manufacturing economy, right, to this like data information economy in the last couple of decades, right? And that's kind of the strategic advantage that we've had across the world relative to other countries is that we're no longer the quote unquote manufacturing economy, right? We are the data and information economy. But that being said, what Jake really had pushed me in thinking about in this conversation, and I think what we'll continue to learn more about is, well, if AI and automation continues to supercharge manufacturing sectors, I wonder if there's going to be any type of manufacturing revival, especially as with artificial intelligence, with automation, things such as being able to produce microprocessors, chips, GPUs, things like that. All of those things become really important, and manufacturing plays a big role in that. So it's making me think: how is our economy going to continue to evolve? How is the job landscape going to continue to evolve with these tools, with the way technology continues to change society? I always ground it in the classroom though, right? And thinking about what schools need to look like and what schools hopefully can look like. And I think beyond this question, it's also making me think about how important it is that the classroom of the future not just emphasize skills that prioritize conventional academics, right? The math, the science, the English, the history, being able to go through that core model, spending 12 years of your life here in the United States doing that, that's all great. But that being said, there's so many other contents, there's so many other subjects, so many other questions that we could be pushing students to explore beyond just those four contents. And it's really, really important. This is such a critical time for us to really evaluate and ask ourselves, are the subjects that we've actually chosen to teach our young people, are these really the most important subjects with their precious time that we could be teaching them? The other thing I'm also thinking about is so much of the current, status quo classroom benefits auditory and visual learners. It doesn't actually benefit tactile and kinesthetic learners, right? We've all heard experiences. If any educator has listening to this, and we've heard the stories of students who are getting sent to, the principal's office and being diagnosed with ADHD, or getting in trouble because they're standing up in class, or they just have a lot of energy and they just won't sit there and listen to teacher talk for 50 minutes. It's because they're kids and they don't want to listen to that, right? They want to be able to move. They want to be able to play stuff with their hands. And those are strengths. And there's actually a lot of resources. There's a lot of vocations of value. There's a lot of really important questions to be answered for young people who possess these traits, where they have very, very strong tactile and kinesthetic aptitudes. And it's very important that we nurture that instead of encouraging them to say there's only one way to learn, which is you got to sit at the desk, you got to listen, and then you got to regurgitate back everything that we've talked about, right? So my hope is that through conversations like the one I'm having today with Jake, through continuing to explore the potential of AI, we can really flip the script on the classroom and ensure that we're embracing all of the young people that are in our education system and really have opportunities for them to learn and to be celebrated for their strengths as well. That being said, in addition to this, I think there's also an opportunity here to teach critical life skills. I will say personally that, as a millennial, and we talk a little bit about this in the episode today with Jake, from my experience when I was in the K to 12, I feel like so much of it was this ethos of like, you either go to college or you're going to work at McDonald's and be a failure. I feel like that was a lot of the like messaging that I got from my educational experience around the career trajectories that were out there. And what I love about the way that schools are starting to evolve with things such as early college programs, a reemphasis on career and technical education here in the United States, being able to have conversations with folks like Jake, that's slowly starting to change. And we're starting to have more dialogue around what exactly it is that we define as success beyond high school graduation. So, but that being said, we really owe it to ourselves to ensure that we're not just having conversations about the 1%, right? Yeah, being able to do the lesson plans, being able to, save time there. That's great. It's important. I think we need to continue to get better at that. But my goal with learning and exploring AI is not that we're just getting 1% better. Let's flip the script. Let's actually make this entire system better. Let's really help young people. Let's prepare our youth to be able to solve some of humanity's biggest problems in a way that we haven't done before because we continue to use the playbook from the last 200 years. Let's really do this thing, right? So that's what I'm really excited about, continuing to reimagine education, not just living in that incremental. So let me know what you think about today's conversation. As always, I'm on at the AI Ed Convo on Twitter. And just a quick reminder as we talk about AI, humans are the heart of AI education. I'll see you all next week.
Jay Call, welcome to the AI education conversation. I'm really excited to have you.
Daniel, it's great to be here.
Thank you, thank you. So I'd love to just kind of jump on in, and I think I really have been um, very engaged by the content that you create, and I know that on social media you go by this moniker, if you will, the manufacturing millennial, and
Yeah,
you have a pretty big social media presence. So I'm just curious, how'd you end up here? How'd you end up as the manufacturing millennial?
yeah. No, it's great to be here, and yeah, I mean, the manufacturing millennial, the name idea came around in like 2019 when I was sitting at a manufacturing conference, and there's probably like 300 or 400 people in the room, and I was looking across the room, and I would say I was the only person there under the age of 40 that was attending this event, and said, well, wait a second, where's our younger generation that's supposedly the future of manufacturing, yet the future generation is attending the events that all of the leadership and changes and future strategies taking place at. And so that's where I became the
Yeah.
unapologetic millennial of manufacturing, saying, I'm a young kid, I have a lot to learn, but I want to be a part of it. My journey into manufacturing started, oh gosh, 12 years before that, when I was a sophomore in high school. I went and got my first manufacturing job working for a custom machine builder systems integrator that did robotics and automation. I did the grunt work. I swept the floor. I cleaned the CNCs and the manual mills. I wiped down the welded parts with acetone and grinded the burrs and did a lot of the grunt work. But I really enjoyed it because I learned a lot. There was a lot of great mentors that taught me a lot of really fun things on like how to tap a hole, how to wire a panel, how to and it was a great experience. After that, went to college. I got a manufacturing engineering degree and biomedical engineering degree, and after that, stepped right into the world of automation sales. So I did a lot of um, vision systems, robotics, motion control, PLCs, a lot of the equipment that goes on custom automation equipment. And the journey of the manufacturing millennial really took off in 2020 when the pandemic really started, and we were told to work from home. And I thought, well, if I'm working from home, I can't go see people in person anymore. So I might as well start making content online, and hopefully they'll see it that way instead of just the traditional, either email or phone call, or trying to get a guy to hop on a Zoom call. And the content resonated with a lot of audiences, a lot more audience than what I was connected with at the time. And fast forward a few years later, now I have a good following on social media across multiple platforms, where I just love advocating manufacturing automation, skilled trades, and what these future industries can offer the next generation.
Yeah, definitely. No, I appreciate that. I think the story you share of you feeling like you were the youngest person in the room sitting in this auditorium, if you will, at this conference, I think really resonates. I know for me, growing up, and I'm a millennial as well,
Mhm.
and so when I was in high school, and I know that you share this statistic on your website, just around the fact that in general, when we talk about manufacturing in the workforce, the large like demographic of folks who are in the manufacturing field are getting older,
Yeah.
right? And so you had mentioned on your website that 20 years ago the number of workers in manufacturing over 50 was about 14%, but now it's like covering close to 26%. And
Mhm.
really what that suggests is that there's not a lot of young people, right? Not a lot of young millennials, right, getting into this field and replacing some of those older workers. And I don't know if you have. I'd love to just kind of maybe speculate a little bit on that. But I would say from my perspective, as somebody who is a millennial, as well as like is very attached to this college access field, and again, I'm really curious as well to hear just like how you even entered the field of manufacturing. But I feel like growing up, it was very much this like binary two-way street when I was in school. And like the
Mhm.
advising I heard, it was very much like, well, you should be going to college. Like it's college or bust, right? It's like college or you're going to work at McDonald's or you're going to be a failure, right?
Yeah.
And that very much seemed to be like the ethos for a lot of the students, like in terms of like the advising we got in my generation, which is like you either make it to a 4-year college or
Mhm.
and it's like bad to work with your hands. I feel like a lot of these messages were some of the things that were out there when I was like growing up and in high school. And I'm excited because it feels like that's shifted a little bit now. But
Yeah.
I'm just curious if that was like your experience
Oh,
as well, or if it was different.
yeah, 100%. Right. When you went in your sophomore, junior year and you went to go meet with a guidance counselor, high school, they weren't like, hey, have you thought about going to go get a skilled trades or a 2-year degree or associate's degree? No, it was, here's, the different universities in the area, and these are the programs that they offer. Select one, and that's what you're doing after high school. And it's one of those things where it's I would say it's a split fault, right? I think our generation of millennials, and I'm hoping we can fix it for the Gen Zs, is that right, we were told this: you go to college, you get a degree, you'll be successful, and you can have the income that you want and buy a house when you want. And well, lo and behold, um, you can get a college degree but still work at McDonald's. Uh, which is
Yeah, that's
which is
true.
the funny part about it. And I think it really relates down to a couple of things. One is the degree that you're getting in college actually valuable? Um, I would definitely say there was some predatorial motives from the educational system on like creating degrees like English and communications and what I would call the GED of college, a business degree. It's like, yeah, you get it, but what is it? What can you actually use it for? Getting a business degree doesn't teach you really how to run a business, in my opinion. As a guy who works for myself and all that. So I think the big thing is right, the average student graduating from college right now who spends over 4 years, it gets closer to 5 years now, going to get a 4-year degree, is going to graduate with an in-state degree of like $33,000 in student debt, and out of state public school $43,000, a private school $63,000. And you look at that, and then the average, if you were to take out the STEM careers of college degrees and what their income is, it's extremely low. It's like $40,000. And I think we need to look at that, because I am not here to say don't go get a STEM degree. If you have the capability in math or science or engineering, or that type of brain style of thinking, to go get that, you're going to be good at it, great. Go get an engineering degree, or a STEM degree. I strongly encourage that, because that's the future of how we're working in the future. Technology makes it so life can be easier. We can do more things with less time and less resources. Um, but if you're out there and you're like, well, hey, I don't know how to do calculus or differential equations, and you need that to do an engineering degree. Well, maybe engineering's not for you, but there's still a lot of other career opportunities. You might be great with your hands. You might become a great electrician or an HVAC person or a CNC programmer, where you can problem solve, you can be innovative without the need for a 4-year degree. I'm like, that's where I would say that shift that we're seeing now is the trades programs for so long had this negative stigma of, oh, I don't want my kid to be a welder, I want my kid to be a doctor. Well, the reality that parents need to hear a lot of times, and this is just the cold hard facts. Well, maybe your kid's not smart enough to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And maybe what you should set is, the world's not fair, and you should set realistic expectations of what your kid probably can do. And if your kid's going to be a plumber or a welder, that's fantastic, because those professions are going to be some of the highest demanded degrees, or highest demanded skills in the future, right? The average welder that's working in manufacturing right now, somewhere between 50 to 53 to 55 years old, which represents over 50% of the working demographic of welders. So you have 600,000 welders working in manufacturing right now in the U.S., with 50% of them being over 50 years old. Well, you're going to have a massive workforce retiring in the next 10 years. It's terrifying. And when people always go out and they complain, they say, well, oh my gosh, I had an electrician come into my house and get paid. I had to pay him $115 an hour to do it. Well, yeah, that's because there's a high demand for them and they're really good at their skill. Tell me what other after you go and you get your journeyman and you work under a master's and you get your license. Tell me what other thing you can go out there and be your own entrepreneur and get paid 115 to 120 hours to do it. That's incredible. And that's the big thing that I'm pushing out there and I'm advocating to future parents and generations is there's multiple successful career opportunities and roads that a person can take. Let's not say that the 4-year degree is the end all be all of success for our future generations, but find out what other roads and avenues are going to be working in. The same thing just for general manufacturing, right? Manufacturing for so long was viewed as, and still is, this viewed as this dark, dirty, dull, dangerous, dumb industry that people work in, that doesn't have innovation, that doesn't have technology, that all the jobs left the U.S. Back in the 1980s and 90s, and manufacturing's no longer existent. Well, the truth of the matter is, manufacturing is like a 2.3 to 2.4 trillion dollar industry in the United States. If you were to take manufacturing and make it its own economy, it would be the 7th largest GDP in the world. It's a massive industry and a massive impact that we're out there, and I guess that's my goal is to do all these different things of making manufacturing exciting, making manufacturing fun, hopefully making it so parents can do a better job coaching their kids on what their future opportunities could be, and kind of at the same time how we can do a better job from an educational side, right? Going back to the education conversation that we're having here in the podcast, of how we as an industry can better enable educational institutes to prepare future generations for jobs.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think so much of what you said resonates. I think, especially just as it relates to like the advising standpoint for students, as you mentioned, we're not necessarily saying college shouldn't be an option for students. Of course it is. It's a tremendous and amazing option. But to your point, there's oftentimes this advising being given to students who are very, very uncertain about what they want to do with their lives, or it's just not a good fit. Right.
Yeah.
And, as you mentioned, you may have some students who have historically said, well, I don't really like school. Like, I'm not interested. And we may try to pass them off to a college and say, well, they're going to figure out their passion here. This is going to be the thing. Right.
I'm just going to go to college for the first 2 years and get my, my liberal arts degrees out of the way. Like, wow. So you're going to pay $20,000 a year to not know what you're going to do.
Exactly.
That sounds smart.
It's a big investment. Right. And then to your point, there's also just like this lifestyle piece that we haven't like fully addressed yet, which is, you mentioned earlier, there may be some students who are being told that like they're very interested in the medical field and they want to be a doctor. Part of it may be aptitude. Part of it though, maybe like they just don't want to like, study that much and actually be in school for that long, right? There's some people who are very, very talented at working with their hands and can actually have like mobility skills that just other people don't have. And we don't weigh that as much in education, right? We actually don't value as much some of those like physical skills that somebody can have, but in there's other vocations out there where that's actually a very tremendous skill set, right? To be able to have some strength, or to be able to be have a lot of dexterity with your hands, and those are skills that are very valuable. And so I think oftentimes when students understand that you can make a living using your hands in a different way, right? And as you said, you're still problem solving. It doesn't mean you're totally not using your brain anymore, but you're using it in this different way. And now there's some tactile pieces, and you can make a living and not have a debt. That can be a very enticing option for a lot of students out there who haven't been really excited about sitting at a desk for so many hours in a day here.
Oh, and that's what's so exciting about it. Technology is always shifting and changing how we work, and the one thing that I love talking about is like how millennials and Gen Zs have this expectation of what their future jobs and careers should look like. I would say arguably because of what they see on social media, right? You know, they go out there and social media says you should have this expensive car and this expensive house and you should look like this and have all this. And the one thing that I would say has truly hurt our generation is this false expectation of what success is looks like. And so like I always love talking when older generations say, oh yeah, everyone wants to be an influencer. um but I was reading an article talking about how influencers actually have a higher risk of being replaced through AI and technology than like skilled trades jobs do, or what they call as low, what they call it from like low education jobs. I mean, because you go out there, AI has the ability to create so much realistic content where you can make a completely fake person look like a real person that can say things, do brand deals, take pictures, make videos, say whatever they want in whatever voice or style they want. And now that AI can do that, one thing is like you could do that for super cheap because you could just give AI prompts and be like, hey, here's this, base of what this character looks like. These are the things I want to say. This is the environment I want to look like. And now you can create whatever you want, where before, influencers and individuals had right, that was their separation from professional production and commercials in the industry. Well, now AI, I think, is going to rapidly catch up. I watched some videos this morning actually talking about how there's AI influencers out there that people don't even realize are AI, that literally have hundreds of thousands, if not almost a million followers. That's completely AI generated. That's getting brand deals. And the whole reason why influencers exist is, to get brand deals with companies to be spokesman for it. Yeah, some people don't have those deals, but at the end of the day, people are like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Well, the only way they can do that is they get money for showing off their extravagant lifestyle. Well, all of a sudden, if AI can do that,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
to your point, it's not just content creation and influencing. It's there's a lot of like administrative and like soft skills that are falling
oh,
into this a little bit. And I think to your point, for me, when ChatGPT and some of these things came out, I think that was probably the biggest surprise about AI, right? Because oftentimes I think the narrative that existed out there, 2022 and prior, was that if AI continues to become automated and develop, it's gonna replace like blue collar jobs. It's gonna replace like a lot. And actually, the first thing it did is it showed that in a lot of instances for these companies, a lot of those like entry level positions where you're doing a lot of these like automated email
yeah,
things,
yeah, the
condensing
white collar job,
information. Yeah,
the white collar
entry
job.
level white collar jobs are exactly the ones being disrupted right now. So that has been by far one of the most interesting trends I've noticed in the last few months here.
Yeah, it's actually one of those things. Like I've been there's time for me. Like I've wanted to write an article saying AI is not going to replace blue collar. It's going to replace white collar jobs, because blue collar has so much, I guess you could say, experience that is needed to happen to wrap around the person's success. A lot of time, blue collar jobs are working with your hands, where with AI, you're right. You can know how to do it, but there's a whole physical, mechanical side of dexterous jobs that there's a lot of technology that needs to happen before AI can be integrated with those dexterous jobs. An AI can tell me how I can sweat a pipe to do plumbing and attach a water heater. AI can tell me how to do that in ChatGPT. I can go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, create a step-by-step program on how to replace a water heater," and it can do that. But can it actually? But it physically can't do that. However, I can go into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, write for me a formula and generate a graph that has this data table as information and pull out the main key points from it." You betcha it can do that right now. And that's
Yep,
what those white
exactly right.
collar entry level jobs are doing. I mean, even from a skill set side of programming, I mean, it's amazing what AI can do in the programming side. And while it might within manufacturing right now, it might not be, completely writing ladder logic for PLCs. We are seeing AI move robots in a way where you don't need to program a robot to do this very pre-programmed movement process, where now all of a sudden we have AI that's going out there, it's finding the points in space using a vision system or a camera or an imager, and it's finding those points in space and then communicating to the robot and say, okay, here's your point, this is where you are now, find a way to get there safely. And now that you can do modeling and simulation, you can simulate your process and say, did this work, and then send it to the robot, and the robot can do it. And that's what's I find so exciting about AI is what we thought was going to be replacing a lot of these low skilled jobs. I think what we're going to find out is it's actually hitting that middle management market, where I would argue a lot of degrees that, going back to the beginning of a conversation, those business, those communication, those English degrees, that's the market that I see a lot of shift happening and within AI, and that's why I go back to encouraging, hey, go become an engineer, because you can be on the front side of, robots are going to be doing more tasks in the future, but we need more jobs to integrate those robots, to handle those robots, to maintain those robots, to build custom and really cool automated equipment. And we need then the skilled tradespeople then to support our everyday lives, because houses aren't going to be built through ChatGPT and generative AI, at least anytime soon. Maybe
not today.
maybe in 40 or 50 years from now. But it's so hard to predict 40 or 50 years ago. I mean, gosh, we have this thing called, in our hand, called a cell phone, and this thing is even 15, 20 years old. Look how far we've come from a Nokia phone to S21 Ultra that has more processing power than the rocket that went to the moon.
Yeah.
It's that crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's I think with that, maybe just to like hit on this before we really transition here, because I really want to start to ask you more about manufacturing AI. You've alluded to it, but like I think you in some of the points that you've brought up, I think just this such an important point around how we as a society, how we can prep our young people to be prepared for the world ahead, right? Because I think there's currently, even still today, there's a little bit of a dichotomy that continues to exist, right? Which is like, if you go to college, somehow like you're a thinker, and if you don't go to college and you try to enter like more of a vocational, somehow like you're not a thinker, right? Like you're like a grunt, right? And I think what I hear you saying so sophisticatedly around just even your own experiences is like, to be successful in this world that we actually don't know what it's going to look like even 10 years from now, it actually requires you to be both, right? You have to be tenacious enough and bold enough to be somebody who's actually going to like try to tackle projects with your hands, because like you should use those, you have them, and like you can do that. And doing so requires just as much problem solving, thinking, critical thinking, analysis, as it does when to go to college and get some type of academic degree. And we need to stop thinking of these things as mutually exclusive, right? There's an opportunity here to be able to think of the tactile vocations as well as thinking as something more complex than either or. And I just want to make sure that we hit that as well.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think it's one of those things where success is defined in multiple ways, and everyone has their own definition of success. I mean, what I would encourage future generations to look at, and even people who are in their 30s or 40s who might not say, hey, I'm not happy with what I'm doing right now. The first thing is, what are you doing to continuously learn? Like, I think that's the big thing that so many people fail at is they went to high school, they went to college, they got a degree, whatever, and they haven't spent a consistent time trying to learn new things on a continuous basis. Like, that is the first set of failure. If you're like, it's the same ideology of, I'm going out there and, oh, I have the Yellow Pages book, which means I have everyone's phone number I'm ever going to need. I'm never going to have to go out there and go and use Google, because Google, even though Google can find this way, I have the Yellow Pages, so I can just continue to do that to order my pizza. It's like one of those things where you need to continuously learn to be successful. And I think so many people have this mentality that I've talked to that, oh, I got my degree and now I should immediately be entitled to have this job with this pay wage and all that stuff. Well, you might have gotten your degree 10 years ago. You know what didn't exist 10 years ago? A ton of things. One of those being this whole entire emergence of ChatGPT. Even this idea of I know so many incredibly successful people who never went to college, who just went online and watched YouTube videos to learn how to program
Mm-hmm.
themselves, to learn how to program. And it's like one of those things is they don't have a college degree, they don't have an associate's, they don't have a 2-year, they don't have a 4-year, but they watch YouTube videos and they learn how to program some unique, I don't know, the language. There's so many different programming languages. Because I'm not a programmer, but it's one of those things where they learned how to do that and they learn those skill sets and they're defining their own success that way. I think that's the big thing is our generations are failing because they don't want to continuously learn. Like that's one thing that kind of resonated with what you said.
No, totally. I'm a big fan of YouTube University. I recently used it. I've never changed some of the headlights on my car before, so I watched a video,
Yeah.
was able to pick it up at the local AutoZone, and I figured it out. And the same with I have a brick fireplace, and I've never mounted a TV onto brick before, and so I had to like learn. Oh, you got to have this special kind of drill and drill bit. I was like, oh, okay. So YouTube University is great, but to your point, folks, we need to just really encourage folks to have not just to go use some of these tools and the technology that exists, but then you also got to have the tolerance to do it, right? You can't say in the back of your mind like, oh, well, I can't do this, or I need a a technician or somebody to do it. Like, you can do it. You
Mhm.
just have to like put in some grit. You have to learn and you have to figure it out, right? And spend some time doing it, just like with anything else. And
Yeah.
to your point, there's this ethos that exists that like after I graduate from high school, after I graduate from college, somehow the learning is done. And no, it's not. You're learning your entire life. You're always figuring things out. You're always problem solving.
And I think with the YouTube, university, I think it's a good transition in a manufacturing and technology. The one thing that I think prevents so many generations, or from that the manufacturing industry does to prevent future generations from being a part of it, is their fear of technology adoption. With older generations who grew up with manufacturing, who graduated from high school at 18, didn't go get a 4-year degree, they just went to go work for a manufacturer right away. They grew up in a very non-digital world and saw that transition of making and building things. Yet a lot of manufacturers are still such a old brownfield facility. They haven't embraced a new form of technology that lasted 25 years. So if you were to go out there and you were to say, hey, we need to get new young kids, 20s and 30s, and excited about manufacturing, but haven't embraced the YouTube University means of teaching new skill sets, solving problems, doing maintenance on machines, and you're still leveraging a printed 3-ring binder to teach people how to learn and how to fix things. What a massive missed opportunity in terms of how you can embrace new technology that's going to make it relatable to future generations. Like, that's the thing that for me just manufacturers absolutely fail at. And the other thing that manufacturers that fail at is better outreach to younger generations for like kids still in middle school and high school. We go out there and we talk about, hey, here's all the cool tech, here's all the things that you can be a part of. But I think what manufacturers really need to do is they really need to start being a lot more vocal on, we can invest in you in ways that other traditional career means of going to a 2-year degree or 4-year degree and paying them to do that miss. At least in West Michigan here where I'm at, there are so many apprenticeship programs that kids graduating or even still in high school can be a part of. They get paid to work, they get paid to learn, and they're doing that in a way that's just so incredible. Yeah, I think so many parents probably don't even realize that those exist.
Yeah. I want to start first maybe with your initial point, because this is something that I know not too much about, and I think it's interesting to hear you talk about this. So when we're talking about manufacturing, I know that like on your page, I saw you had so many different examples of this, from, machines that were like automated, walking through a park and just picking up trash from a park. You had machines that were um, making cookies automatically, like working and making cookies. So manufacturing means a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I guess like one point I heard you say is that the field as a whole, not everybody is adopting technology and really going through. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about, like, when you think about AI, the way that technology has come into the sector of manufacturing, like how has AI like really jumped into manufacturing? Um, and are you seeing certain sectors transform and emerge more than others? Like, what opportunities are you identifying out there for students? Like, is it across the board manufacturing? There's so many opportunities, or are there certain fields that are really adopting technology, really being progressive on the front here with their adoption of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I would say AI can be used in a couple of different ways. One is I would call the front office, and then the floor. The front office, we kind of talked a little bit, right? The generative AI can be a massive tool for managers and people in HR and people in hiring and businesses to create prompts and make tedious work a lot easier. And those exist. The other thing that I would say, generative AI or just AI in general, can be used a lot on the floor. And there's a few things that come into mind. Like, one is robotics. We're seeing a lot more AI being used to leverage robotics in a new way that makes robots a lot more agile in the process in which they're being used, whether it be welding, where we're leveraging AI to do really cool welding operations. We're leveraging AI to do really cool palletization, depalletization, picking. So where we're taking parts, going in a massive warehouse facility, and we're taking individual singulated parts out of bins, and then those are going into your boxes that are being shipped to the door. For a long time, humans had to go out there and grab, that one part, take that part, put it in that box, throw a label over it. That's a lot of dexterous work, and it was so complicated because every part's different, every pick is different. You're never going to see the exact same in the exact same location twice. And so that's a massive impact that we're seeing that way. The other area that we're seeing is like AI is being used a lot with robotics. I would say AI is being used a lot with like vision as well, for vision systems, for identification, rather that be for like a quality control, where we're looking at a product and we're seeing, was there a manufacturing process there was a defect involved, like there was a burr, there was a dent, there was a scratch on a Class A surface. It's traditionally, vision was really hard. Machine vision was really hard to detect those because a scratch would never be in a lot of times the same, area twice. You could detect a measurement on a part and look at its ID and OD and all that stuff because it was the same area. You throw a backlight with a telecentric lens, you can easily detect that. But how do you detect something where there's a defect that could happen anywhere and you don't know what it's going to look like? That's where AI and teaching models of good parts can detect variability of bad that you've never seen before. And I would say that's like where AI is making another impact as well, where you're seeing a lot of combination of AI impacting vision and AI impacting like robotics. Those are the big things. Now we are seeing more, I would say, on AI is a great tool for like DOE, design of experiments, where you would have a process where you need to like run 1,000 iterations to see what would be the most efficient or what is the best ratio or order of operations for a process. Now all of a sudden with AI, you can run these simulations and do all this stuff at a much faster, lower cost rate. Those are some areas that we're seeing in AI. I think there's definitely a place for AI right now. I would also argue that AI is very much of a buzzword in a lot of cases as well, where you see a lot of VC companies coming from the East and West Coast who are just say, "Oh yeah, we're leveraging AI to do this," and then they go, they run out of investment money 4 years later.
Yeah, totally.
So it's one of those things where there's a lot of great opportunities. There's a lot of great success. There's a ton of phenomenally successful cases which AI has been leveraged in manufacturing, and I would say there's an equal amount of cases where they failed.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, I think that resonates. I think when I say artificial intelligence, obviously, as you've mentioned, the examples that folks might commonly know as artificial intelligence, things such as large language models and generative AI, is not obviously like what you're mentioning is artificial intelligence and what has been most helpful in manufacturing. You really have described kind of like that visual detection as being like one of the strong pieces, and then and then to the other point. I'd really encourage folks to check out your social media page, because like beyond artificial intelligence, as you've described, there also exists this advancement in robotics and automation, which has like really transformed the
Yeah.
field. And it's not necessarily AI, but it has transformed the way that these industries have worked and made those jobs like significantly just like smoother, right? And maybe
Oh,
not as like
yes.
taxing and physically taxing. And so I am also wondering, to that point. So just to like, I know that like we have to kind of like wrap up here pretty soon. I'm also wondering, you said this earlier around there continues to exist kind of this chasm a little bit, right, between schools and between just like companies out here who are doing a lot of great work in
Mhm.
manufacturing. And I think that continues to be part of the hurdle here, is this hurdle around just like exposure. How do you think schools and districts should be preparing for like this like evolution in manufacturing? Like, are there examples in the field you can point to, or like any successful pipelines or practices you've seen that schools and teachers can take away from this?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for schools to get more involved with like the traditional like trades classes that once were, right. The shop classes that once existed that taught kids how to weld and to do plumbing and carpentering. Those are tough. There's a lot of resources that are involved. Um, Especially when so much state and federal mandation on schools. Kids need to have 4 years of science, 4 years of math, 4 years of social studies, and history and economic. They're all competing for kids' time. Like, but the one thing that I would say, um, schools should be doing a better job with extracurricular opportunities and stuff. Like US First Robotics is something that I'm super passionate about, where there's thousands of high schools across the US and across the world, and teams going all the way down to elementary school that are getting kids excited about robotics and programming and design and CAD. Um, those are phenomenal tools. So I mean, the first place to start, I would argue, is it's a great established program already that there's a lot of scholarships and um, resources available to get those programs going. Like, that would be one place to start. But like, the other area that I would start is what are local manufacturers doing to align themselves with local educations, not colleges and universities, but high schools, to say, hey, we want kids out there to be aware of what we're doing locally in the community and what we can do to hire a high school kid to give them a summer internship to work at our company. I think those investments would be huge. Because what I think a lot of times, parents don't know where to start. Parents don't know how to get their kid and connected with a local manufacturer to do those things. Um, and that's the one area. I mean, so for my encouragement is manufacturers, their employees are going to be local, so they need to invest locally to find the future talent that's going to help their company grow in the years to come.
Definitely. Jake, thank you so much for your time today. I have so many other questions, and we're definitely going to have to schedule some times in the future to reconnect as you continue to kind of evolve and learn more about the field, and we continue to have the conversations here. But thank you so much for your time today.
Daniel, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the AI Education Conversation. Give a follow, rate, and review wherever you listen. For all show notes and to share your thoughts on today's episode, check out the AI Ed Convo on Twitter. See you next time.